Welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Radio with your host, Jeffery Combs.
Good afternoon. Jeffery Combs with the COVID hair. Good afternoon, Jeffery Combs. It is Tuesday, 2 for Tuesday. We are May 28th. Very inspiring day today. I also have a Zoom with Heather Vaughan later today at 7 p.m. See, that is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you can find a way to get on that Facebook Live or that Zoom tonight, you can definitely participate in that. I'll be interviewed by Heather Vaughan. Heather is a gym owner and a top-tier fitness professional. She has competed nationally in women's fitness competition and is a top-tier exceptional woman. I had the privilege of being her coach for 3 years, and she's going to interview me for her gym and for her free enterprise business. Heather is a coach, a direct sales superstar, and as I said, is a gym owner in Greenwood, South Carolina. Not to be confused with Greenville, but Greenwood. There are two separate, beautiful, small cities in South Carolina, and I have been to Greenville, not Greenwood, but they're very close. I've had the privilege of speaking in South Carolina on many occasions. I've spoken in Columbia, South Carolina, Charleston, which was a dream. I spent 2 times in Charleston. I spent 2 times in Greenville, and at least 10 times in Spartanburg, and at least another 10 times in Columbia. So many great memories of South Carolina for me. Aaron, good afternoon, and good afternoon, John. So today I am covering one of my all-time favorite topics, a topic that I live. It's called Synchronicity, and I also refer to it as Synchrodestiny. This is a book that I've been reading. I've been reading this book, There Are No Accidents. I've been reading this book for over 25 plus years. It came out I've been reading the book for at least 20 years. This book came out in, I believe, 1990, maybe a little sooner. Let me tell you the date that it was published, 1997 by Hopkey. So it is over 20 years old. I have been reading it over because I bought it when it was brand new, and it is an exceptional book. There are no accidents. And when is a coincidence, and when is an event synchronicity? So when you think about your grandmother, you're thinking about her, and then the phone rings and it's her. Is that synchronicity? Absolutely. It's a meaningful coincidence. And synchronicity, the modern version of synchronicity, was really launched it was really introduced by Carl Jung. Jung was the Swedish physicist who coined the term synchronicity. And if you go to page 15 in this book, it's amazing. So right here it says, defining synchronicity, right here. When are coincidences not coincidences? And the book says right here that Jung's book, Synchronicity, an Occlusal Connecting Principle, published in 1952, coined the term synchronicity and launched it into psychological parlance, after which it quickly taken up by popular culture. So synchronicity is not an old term. It's a term that really started to take place in the 60s as people were beginning to experiment with consciousness, and they're starting to understand consciousness at a much higher level. Jody Garrett has joined me on today's call. Now, Jody, our topic today is synchronicity, and it's on command. So here would be an example. Jody was a Major League Baseball player, and I'm a big fan of Jody's. I was his coach back in 2015-16. So Jody was the co-rookie of the year with the Cleveland Indians. I believe that's correct, Jody, the co-rookie of the year. So that's right, Jody. So Jody and I'm a big baseball fan. So there have been almost 400 men. Back when I really followed baseball, it was around 322. So I'm going to factor that it's around 400. 400 men have hit a home run on their first major league at bat, somewhere like that. And my friend Gary Gaetti was one of those players, I believe. I believe he hit a home run in his first major league at bat in 1982. I went to college with Gary from Centralia, Illinois. Jody would know of him. He may have been before Jody's time, but he had a home run I believe, in his first major league at bat. And then there are the men who hit a home run in their first major league pitch. So that would be an example of synchronicity, and that could even go on to synchrodestiny. I mean, your first at bat in the major leagues, you hit a home run. Your first pitch in the major league, you hit a home run. I mean, what would the law of averages be? It would be off the charts, the law of averages. Now, in people skills, in the law of average, synchronicity breaks down to a term called the law of the few, and that type of personality is an outlier. So Jody, who is on today's call, was a rookie of the year in the American League. Once again, this would be the extreme law of the few. Jody, Ted Leland used to live right next door to me. He may have been your athletic director at Stanford University, but I've mentioned your name to him. He lived next door to me for 15 years. And I say next door, I mean he lived like just catty-cornered right across the street from me in this big mansion right across the street from me. He was the athletic director at University Pacific. He was the athletic director at Stanford University. He brought Bill Walsh back to Stanford University after he won 2 Super Bowls. He lived across the street from me, and he may have been Jody's athletic director. Let me know if that is correct, Jody. But I mean, once again, what are the law of averages synchronistically that Jody would be on today's call? For me, it would be very high because I have an extremely high law of average. So there are no accidents. So I cover this in content in Ted Leland. So once again, right here. So this breaks down synchronicity for you. So my next door neighbor, Ted Leland, was Jody Garrett's athletic director at Stanford University when Jody was there. Okay, so what would the law of averages be? Well, for Jody and me, it will be very high. Jody was the rookie of the year, I believe co-rookie of the year or rookie of the year with the Cleveland Indians, and I believe Jody hit 22 home runs his rookie year with the Cleveland Indians. So what are the law of averages? Well, for Jody, it's high. So what would that be? What would that a lot? And then Jody, I know Michael Doderer, who never coached with me, but he knew me, used to follow me. He had one of the top batting averages or the most hits ever at Stanford, and he played in the 1983 Los Angeles Raiders that won the Super Bowl that year. What are the law of averages that I would know Michael Doderer? Well, they'll be very high because that's who I am. And then his father was Dutch Doderer, and I have his rookie card, grade 8, I believe, Philadelphia Phillies. What are the law of averages that this would happen to me? Well, this is not a coincidence. This is called occlusal alignment. This is when you become the 6 degrees of separation. So in 6 degrees of separation, we can attract anyone. And this is especially when you believe that. This will not happen when you're in low self-esteem, you're in anxiety, fear, and doubt, you're overwhelmed, you're not sure, you're not certain, you're holding on to debt, you're holding on to multiple situations. And these situations, miracles happen for me. In my coaching call today, I was coaching a woman and she had a breakthrough, and the breakthrough was so empathic that she reached out and called her husband, and some healing was facilitated by this, and she just sent me a message right here. So I mean, once again, these situations happen to me frequently. That is what synchronicity on command is. It's the practice skill of being so in alignment that you are alignment. And that means that your law of averages become extremely high for you to set in a first-class seat called 2B. I flew United Airlines for 21 years, traveling the world speaking. Jody saw me speak in Milwaukee, came and saw me speak back in the day. I flew into Chicago, and I guarantee you I sat in seat 2B. That's 2B is first class, so 2B. I mean, it was an inside joke, but I always sat in 2B. What are the law of averages that Nancy Pelosi sets in the seat in front of me when I'm sitting in 2B and she's in 1A? She's in the window seat, I'm in 2B, and I said to myself, while I'm on the plane flying from Palm Springs to to Sacramento, California. She is going to talk to me. And she did. It was in April. She asked me if I was watching the NCAA tournament game, and she asked me if I would get her bag down for her. And she had 6 bodyguards on that plane. What are the law of averages that Nancy Pelosi, who incidentally, I'm not a fan of hers, but I'm not being political on today's Facebook Live. Those of you who know me know me. But what are the law of averages of all the people on the plane she talks to me? They're very high because that's who I am, and that is who I believe I am. And because that's who I believe, then I attract to my reality people who believe what I believe. Simon Sinek covered that content in 2013. Attract people who believe what you believe. And that was that whole context that allowed him to really break through and be the TEDx speaker that he was. Start with why. And that whole context of content right now is what synchronicity is. It means synchronicity is you attract your reality, quality like-minded success seekers, quality like-minded soulmate, quality like-minded teammate, customers and clients who see your value, people who want to partner with you, people who want to be a brand partner, people who want to join your business, people who want to be your friend, people who want to buy your products, services, benefits, and features. Contractors knock on your door. They go, I'm in the neighborhood. I was just wondering if you're looking for a handyman. And that handyman becomes your asset for the next several years. I mean, once again, this is how it operates. I did a post 3 years ago, and a man named Toby commented under the post, and I was just getting ready to, I just bought a house with my wife, a second house I was getting ready to rehab, and he wrote a message under the post, said, don't forget, I once tiled your bathroom. Well, it's not that I forgot. I didn't know who he was because my assistant hired him as a subcontractor to tile my bathroom, but he came out underneath the post, and in the next 3 years, he did over $200,000 worth of rehab for me. There are no accidents. I mean, this is once again, when synchronicity is not a coincidence, synchronicity is a reality. So synchronicity broken down means that through telepathic feelings, through affirmation, through words, through ads, through writing, through feeling, through thought forms, through sending it out into the ether, through putting it into the universe, through connections with God, through the pineal gland right there, through the prefrontal cortex, through the amygdala, which is the gland that searches for emotional feeling, that is the reticular activating system that brings together neurons that wire and fire together. Through these combinations is how you will begin to attract your reality, quality, like-minded success seekers that you can collaborate. So here's some of the comments on today. Kevin says, amazing. Aaron says, experienced the most incredible partnership opportunity this morning across multiple channels. It was one moment of synchronicity. Thank you very much. If you want to post any of the experiences of synchronicity that you have experienced, feel free to post some of those right here in the Facebook Live. Scott Fellini has just joined me. Scott is also a very skilled networker, meaning he's able to, through multiple networks, he's been able to meet multiple people. Scott and I have multiple connections that we know of each other. Scott was connected to Brig Hart, who is one of the top networkers of all time from the Amway era, and Scott has lived in Jacksonville, which is really one of the homes of network marketing in the United States. It has some of the biggest collection of network marketers that live in Jacksonville. So whatever the energy of the planet is that people live in Jacksonville, they live in Jacksonville, and there's some chemistry to that area. So there are no accidents. So if you want to buy a book, an old school book that really breaks this down, there are no accidents. I have highlighted this book multiple places and multiple times. I'm just looking at some of the pages. I've pinked out many of the pages. And so here's one of the most important chapters right here. When are coincidences not coincidence? And so he breaks down Carl Jung. So Jung was spelled Junj. He wrote the book Synchronicity and Occlusal Connecting Principle. And I have that book right over there. And so I'll show you another book that I have. This is another exceptional book. Now, this is a real little book. So see how little this book is? for those of you who've been around as long as I have, these are the books that I used to buy in the 70s. These were the little books that were available. There were Walden bookstores and there weren't Barnes and Nobles, but this is a little book called The Roots of Coincidence. I've had this book for many years in hardback, and just this year I bought this. This is an excursion into parapsychology. So breathe, release, and let go. There are no accidents. And when you begin to understand that, that is what alignment is. So I was covering this with one of my clients today. She owns a salon in South Florida. She's a very successful network marketer. She does very, very well financially, and she's a couple of people away. I mean, so in direct sales, when you get paid for leadership, it pays you to attract and or develop people for the term rank advance. And so that is absolutely a synchronistic skill to be able to attract a producer, to attract a person who has a vision, to attract a person who seeks an outcome. And this skill is applicable in every area of your life. I coach a woman who taught herself how to golf in her 60s. She's a very skilled real estate professional. She lives in a very small island on Hawaii, Kauai, and it has some of the most valuable real estate in America per capita and has the smallest inventory. So my client attracted one person who bought a 9-figure property from her and is now buying another 8-figure property from her. And he was a referral from her son who owned his own tree trimming business. He was trimming palm trees. And a woman that he knew referred this man to his mother. And her son, Gavin, was a world champion surfer. His name was Gavin Gillette. If you look him up, Gavin, Gavin, Gillett. There's right up there on my wall. There's an autographed cover of a magazine called Surf Magazine. For over 10 years, he was a top 10 surfer, and his surfboard was filled with stickers of all the labels that paid him to brand their label. And after he retired, he was trimming trees. A woman asked him if he knew of a realtor in the area, and the woman was the assistant for this man, and there are no accidents. Now, my client sold a 9-figure property, an 8-figure property, and she's in the midst of finding another 8-figure property for this man from a woman asking for a referral. Now, this would happen to my client, Susie. Her name is Susie Gillette. This happens to her because that's how she operates in life. I've known Susie since 2008. I've been her coach multiple times, and I've been her coach consecutively for the last 5 years. And Scott, there's a possibility she will be at the Millionaire Blueprint, but you can follow her on Facebook, Susie, Suzi, Gillette. She wrote a book about Las Vegas, and she's written at least 2 books, and I highly endorse her. And these situations happen to her frequently. So this is what the belief is. This always happens to me. So if this always happens to you, then it will begin to happen to you more frequently. I did an event in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 6 years ago, and a man crossed the state on a bus. This happens to me frequently. He crossed the state on a bus because he had no car. He was in early recovery, and he was just clean and sober, and he'd been following me for a few years, and he saw me for the very first time 6 years ago in Fort Lauderdale. I was speaking at the Hilton on that boardwalk. If you've ever been to Fort Lauderdale, there's that bar called Elbow Room, and then there's all the hotels on Hotel Row. There's the Ritz, the Westin, the Marriott, and the Hilton, and I've spoken in all of them, as I would, because that always happens to me. I have spoken so many places in the world, it's amazing, but I spoke at all of those. So one day, Scott, on a Saturday, 6 years ago, makes the trip across the state on a bus. Who does that? He did. People do that for me. That always happens to me. Kevin Paulson is on today's Facebook Live. He wasn't in the same room that Yes, that's right. That's right. Kevin was there. Oh my God, Kevin. See, this is synchronicity. So the story I'm telling you, Kevin is on the Facebook Live today. This man comes across, it was 5 or 6 years ago, crosses the state to see me speak. That's the first time I met Kevin. I met Kevin and Scott the same day. My client Scott Bertha crosses the state to see me speak in early recovery. Well, now today, he lives in Naples, Florida, that's right, Kevin, 2018, multiple six-figure income earner in real estate. Look him up, Scott Bertha, Bertha, and he shares an office. He's in an office suite with a former client of mine, Francesco Pecoraro. Once again, through 6 degrees of separation, these two men, they end up in office, and this one, Francisco goes, "Hey, haven't I seen you on a Jeffery Combs Facebook Live?" "Oh, yeah." So they find out that both of them coach with me, and they're sharing office space in a suite in Naples, Florida. This always happens to me. So these are the stories that shape our life. This is what synchronicity becomes synchrodestiny. There are no accidents. How does this happen? Well, I'm from a little town this big called Clarinda, Iowa. Clarinda, Iowa is below Omaha, above Kansas City. If you know anything about geography in America, there's a place, there's the Four Corner region where Utah, Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico touch, or no, not Nevada. It's Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. It's called the Four Corners. Well, there's also 3 corners where Iowa, Nebraska, and Missouri touch, and Kansas is below it. But that's where I grew up, in that area, a town this big. No one taught me synchronicity. I started to experience it as a child. Unique situations would happen to me frequently. I had imaginary friends. Were they imaginary? That would be for me to determine. But I communicated with imaginary friends frequently. Perhaps you experienced that. And I was downloading content about history that is relevant today. As a child, there are no accidents. And as you begin to let go, what happens is your pineal gland begins to open. That's the ocular gland that connects you with Source and or God. As you begin to let go, your prefrontal cortex, which is enlarged, begins to shrink. As you begin to let go, your amygdala, which is shrunk, goes back to its normal size. As you begin to let go, your hippocampus, which is your short, long-term memory, begins to clear up, and then you begin to let go in places and areas that you have never let go of, because you are creating, like Scott says right here, divine appointments. And that is absolutely, Scott, that is what this Facebook Live is for today. Synchronicity, when synchronicity becomes synchrodestiny, there are no accidents. My name is Jeffery Combs, president and founder of Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. You have an outstanding afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and hit the record button. And if you'd like to replay, pass this on, or watch it again, you will have absolute access to it. Have a great afternoon, everyone.